check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
What I've said, and you know what I've done, and you know what we're doing, and you know what I know what you're doing.
And what you're doing is watching Talking with TalksALot, the variety talk show that's pretty much all about the things we love and the people we love to watch and the people we love to engage with. Joining me today is Shaun, the fantastic owner and operator of Omegastar Productions here on YouTube, including Omegastar Video Gaming. Make sure to check that out. I forgot to put the link in the description, but I'll make sure to fix that later. He's also the owner and operator over on BitChute of He Who Laughs and Escaping the Matrix. That almost escaped my mind. Wow. How you doing today, sir?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. This is going to be fantastic.
Everything Stargate.
Yes, sir. I love Stargate. We love Stargate. Me and Shaun love Stargate.
We
Plain
could
and simple.
An hour isn't enough, dude, but we'll do our best.
Indeed. So as always, we will pop over and say hi to our chat. Jacob Ironside, good to see you, sir. I'm glad you could join us. Stephen Ransom, good to see you.
Hey,
good to see you. It was wonderful having you randomly stumble into Florals the other night. That was great. The lovely Sherry, as always, it's wonderful to see you there. And XRL7.
Good to see you, man.
I like the sound of that. Hey, all. How you doing, Mike? It's good to see you. I look forward to having you on next week. Superman, if he wasn't scared of green rocks. Hail, I'm just getting ready for work, but I wanted to drop by and say Stargate is awesome. You're correct.
Yes, it is.
You are correct. As a matter of fact, I would go as far as saying this is my favorite sci-fi franchise on TV.
It is on TV. Yeah, for sure.
Yes.
Not that I'm going to diss any Star Trek lovers, because I have nothing but respect for classic Star Trek, let's just say pre-Abrams, what they've got going on now. But I feel like Stargate needs a little bit more love. I feel like it's not underrated, but for a lot of people, it goes under the radar. There's like, Stargate, yeah, I've heard of that.
Yep. And as everybody knows, Stargate was a major movie back in the day. I say major movie, but I don't know how it performed. But
dude, it was Roland Emmerich's best movie in my mind. That guy has just gone off the deep end with what I call disaster porn.
Yeah.
But when him and Dean Devlin, it was the first movie that I remember, and came out in 1994. It starred Kurt Russell and what's his name? Spade? No,
James
Daniel
Spader?
Jackson. Yeah, and it was based a lot on Chariots of the Gods, so there's some of that Ancient Aliens before Ancient Aliens was a thing.
I love that.
Yeah, and what I love, because I was a bit of a weird kid, is I really loved ancient Egyptian everything, like mythology and all that good stuff, and Ra especially, the sun god. And we got I don't think we got this one on pay-per-view, but we got it from Blockbuster Video Rental when it was first available to rent. And I remember putting this thing in, and right from the get-go, you know you're in for a treat when you got David Arnold's score playing over that wonderfully shot intro that's going over, was it the Statue of Anubis?
Yeah.
And the rest of it was just from start to finish. It captivated me and took my imagination to a wonderful place. How about you, man?
As far as the movie goes, I thought it was great. I love all the actors that they had in that. The concept of the Goa'uld obviously changed between the movie and the TV show.
This is true.
But not in a bad way, because I don't feel like they could have done a lot with the way they presented the
Well, they
Goa'uld.
kind of worked it into Thor's race, that it could have been what we saw. It looked very gray alien-ish.
Yes, very Asgardian.
Yeah, so it could have been maybe his previous host
Right.
was an Asgard or something. I know that wasn't the original concept
Yeah.
for the movie because I was very worried when SG1 came out because I didn't really get into it until my college years, and that was a good at least 5, 6 years after.
Yeah.
Um, SG1 had, I think it originally came out in Showtime, dude, before was it making its way over to Sci-Fi? And I remember seeing an episode or two because we didn't have access to Showtime.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until college when I had cable and got it through other means. Won't go too much into that. Um, the it is quite different to the movie, but it does pay respect. It does its own thing, and if it wasn't for the fact that they wrote such great stories, such great, wonderful, lovable
Yep.
characters, it could have gone badly. Like, for example, O'Neill, which
Mm-hmm.
was originally played by Kurt Russell, um, was taken over by Richard Dean Anderson, and he does play that character quite
And
differently.
yes, he does it very differently. But in my opinion, the Jack O'Neill with Richard Dean Anderson was actually more engaging than the character type that they created for Kurt Russell in the movie. And that's just me. I get where Kurt Russell's backstory is, and I'm glad that they continue to use that backstory in the show, but I'm glad they didn't make that like a super huge centerpiece. They did in a few episodes, but like they allowed his character to develop.
Oh yeah,
And
I mean, it would have been. It was understandable in the movie's context because he lost his kid. He
Mhm.
was very almost what do they call it? Wanted basically suicidal, and he was going on a
Yep.
kamikaze mission, and that's not going to be a very joyful, wonderful, loving like in
Right.
that sense. It's going to be very
Yeah.
hardcore military. And
Yep.
Kurt Russell, look, it's always a joy for me to watch Kurt Russell on screen. He's one of my
For
one of
sure.
my favorite actors. But it was in the context of the movie as a standalone, he did have a wonderful development through it. He got hope at the end, and he became friends with someone that he clashed with that you would never have thought he'd become friends with. And at the end, he had a smile on his face, and you all see you around, Dr. Jackson, before going through
Yeah.
wormhole back to Earth, and that's how the movie ends. Wonderful, wonderful way to do it. And then when we got to SG1, they needed someone with a lot more longevity and someone that's more of a team player. And Richard Dean Anderson, he gave his own spin. He wanted to have his own spin, and again, it was a risk. And it's a good way of doing a risk because it could have
Mhm.
backfired badly. It could have been very egocentric, not paid, like we see these days, where they just completely destroy the character.
Yep.
Instead, he inherited, made his own. He invested his soul into it, and it paid off.
Yep.
And I love all members of SG1. When we got Teal, for example,
Dude.
wonderful, wonderful character. Sam.
So who's your favorite character in the SG1?
Ooh. That is a good question, by the way, but it's a tough one to answer because they did so well with writing. They did great with the episodes that were team based, but they also spent some episodes that were more character focused. Like they did
Mhm.
episodes that were more focused on Teal'c, Daniel Jackson. I think O'Neill got the short end of that stick. There wasn't that many on O'Neill. You got
Yeah.
some on Sam. So it depends, dude. There are some where I think maybe Teal'c, maybe just I don't know. There's something about Teal'c that I really like, but I really like Doctor Jackson's character as well. As much as I love O'Neill, as much as I love Sam, there's just something about from the movie that I can kind of relate to as well. Trying to put a take on how the pyramids were built and things like that. And he was
Yeah.
shunned. He was an outcast from society, basically.
Yep.
There's just something about that I can kind of relate to more than the rest of them.
Yeah.
But they're also lovable. I mean, once we get into Stargate Atlantis, that's going to be an interesting conversation because as much as I love the movie, as much as I love SG1, there's something special about Atlantis that just
Yes.
does it for me.
And we will definitely discuss that. So Jacob Ironside says, interesting fact, the movie Independence Day was originally supposed to be a sequel to Stargate.
I've heard that somewhere. That's true, yeah.
I can see why they separated it, but that would have been a
I'm
pretty
glad
sick
they did.
tie-in. I mean, if they would have done it right, it would have been pretty sick. But I'm glad that they made Independence Day a standalone.
Well, Roland Emmerich and Dean Devlin, the original creators behind Stargate, they always had sequels planned. I think they were going to do a trilogy, and you could kind of see that at the end of the movie, and then something happened where it got a new creative team and it became a television series, and I'm glad it worked that way. Not that I'm saying it couldn't have worked as a movie series,
Hell yeah.
but just to touch a little bit on the original Independence Day, I like that movie. I love it as a standalone. I can't stand that they gave it a sequel, but I'm really glad that Independence Day and Stargate stand alone as their own separate
Yes,
things.
very much so. So one of my favorite characters from SG1 is one of the most underrated characters in existence, and that is Jonas.
Yes,
Jonas Hill.
when he came in
Jonas.
and replaced Daniel Jackson for that one season, I know he got I'm not going to say he got hate from the community, but unloved. I really
Yeah,
thought because he had to work to be a team member. Like O'Neill was not into his character at all, and then
yeah.
throughout the season, he really he earned that trust. He earned that honor to be
Well,
part of
and
SG1, and I wanted to see more of him, dude.
yeah, and Jonas actually had, in my opinion, the most potential in the show
Mm,
because, he had like McKay's smarts.
yes, he did.
He had, he
He had
had,
the what Daniel Jackson's character had,
yep,
with
the linguistic understanding and history and all this other
mhm,
stuff. And he had his own personality. I
mhm,
loved how they centered him around food a lot,
yep, and
where
he
it
was
was
an
like,
outsider too.
yep. And he was the outsider from another alien planet that, he had the potential to be a kind of a teal'c in the situation,
Yeah,
but he was able to define himself completely separately and then being able to go back to his own planet. And they could
yeah.
have done so much with Jonas that I feel like that was a huge missed
I was
opportunity.
always hoping for him to come back. When we got to the Arai, I know we're jumping ahead a
Yep.
little bit, and when we got to the Arai
You're good.
storyline, when they start bringing in like, what is his name, Ben Crowder? Is that his name? Ben.
Yep. Ben
I'm bad with
Browder.
names, but yeah. And
Yeah.
as much as I love, oh, what's it with the black hair? Her and Daniel Jackson came.
Oh yeah, Claudia Black.
Claudia Black, thank
Yep.
you. And they are from the Farscape
Yep.
franchise, and that went under, and they brought them over. I was always hoping, bring Jonas back. He has a lot of
Yep.
potential, but I guess I kind of understand why they didn't, because he was a sort of replacement for Daniel Jackson,
Yes.
and Daniel Jackson stayed until the end when he came back. So just for anyone that hasn't seen SG1. Uh, I'm gonna get into spoilers, dude, if that's okay, because I think they should have seen the show by now. So I think it's okay to talk a little bit with
I
spoilers.
agree.
Daniel Jackson's character, um, he sacrificed himself for the team, and they brought in this new character, Jonas, that was connected to Daniel Jackson, but he ascended basically. I know that's not going to make any sense, but it gave potential for Daniel Jackson's character to come back, and it did a season later. But they kind of they I really felt like they handled it was bittersweet in a way. Like he got the exit he deserved, but they never brought Jonas back, and they just
Mm-hmm.
brought Daniel Jackson back, and that's great. I love Daniel Jackson. I love Michael Shanks who plays him in the show, but we I felt like we really grew to love Jonas over that one season, and then it was
Yep.
all kind of, as much as they gave him a good send off, he survived. He went back to his home world, and he was a big part of. We did get one episode, where was it where they had to? It was inspired by that movie with the guy who plays Harvey Dent in The Dark Knight, where they had to dig to the center of the earth to
Yep. I remember that
core.
episode. The where they had the driller to the core and
Yeah. XRL7 as an interesting
yes.
question there. Should
So
we
I will get to the chat's questions here in a second, but you brought up Daniel Jackson ascending, so I have to ask,
go
in the
for it?
fashion of Daniel dying a billion times, what was your favorite? Do you have a favorite running joke in the series?
Do I have a favorite running joke? It's got to be something with Teal'c. I'd be jumping way too far ahead because it also ties into Atlantis, but
Go ahead.
um, it's not a running joke, but it's a running thing with Teal'c with Indeed.
Yes.
And then finally, there's a
Indeed.
wonderful episode in Atlantis where Ronan and Teal'c meet for the first time, and they
Yes.
butt heads. And Ronan's like, "You say that a lot," and
Yeah.
Teal'c's
The Ronin team up episode.
I didn't realize that. And that's like SG1 had finished,
Yeah.
and there was something about that that just made me laugh, dude. Because the
Yeah.
way Ronan says it's like, you say that a lot, in a typical Ronan fashion. And Teal'c's like, just you can completely see he doesn't realize that. But I love the interactions between O'Neill and Teal'c. Like, Teal'c is. I think he would have played a good Terminator, by the way.
He would have. Christopher Judge would have made a
Christopher
great
Judge would have made a
Terminator.
great Terminator. But Teal'c, do you remember that episode early on where they're sparring? O'Neill and Teal'c are sparring, and he's in the boxing gear, and he's just
Yeah.
standing there. And O'Neill's really getting into it, and he punches Teal'c, and Teal'c barely feels anything, and he just gives a jab towards
Yeah.
O'Neill. And yeah, it's like, okay, no. And he's like, "Are you okay, O'Neill?" And it's like, "Oh, yo, come on, let's keep going, let's
Yeah.
keep going." I mean, there's so much. Let's just say SG1 and Atlantis has wonderful humor. You don't see it
Mhm.
anymore. It's a lot of people say it's family friendly. Sure, but
Yes,
I feel like
but
that does it a disservice.
yes.
It's that wonderful adventurous humor that you just do not see anymore.
Yeah, for me, that's what actually separated it from, say, Star Trek and Star Wars and all the other ones was their reliance on regular humor in even tense situations, like O'Neill's seeming simplicity despite his mental complexities. Teal'c's literal sense of everything and his ability, like the Jaffa humor, like the Jaffa joke that he told in the series was one of my favorite things that ever existed, with the nose dripping. And then, but I'd have to say that my favorite running joke is Siler getting hurt
Right,
all the
I
time.
always just knew him as the stunt guy.
Yeah.
They put him through so much, dude.
Yep.
Yeah, like I never really saw it as a running gag. I always saw it as, again, lovable character. He doesn't really say much. He's just, like I said, the stunt guy, but he's always there, and he's like part of the family.
Yep.
He's
He is. Him and Walter.
yeah, Walter. Yeah,
The
right.
gate operator. He's like, "What do you do?" Well, I open the gate. I tell them that the chevrons are locked.
And he's so into it, and you can see,
Yep.
that episode. He's so into it. He's so proud and so excited, and everyone else is kind of like, okay. And he's like, and then he feels really bad. Then
Yeah.
he's undervalued. Yeah, but that's the thing. The humor flew so naturally. It never felt forced. The way it was
didn't.
great. Never.
It was fantastic. It was smooth, and it played into things like O'Neill being able to take digs at Ball or any of the major Goa'ulds that they go up against at any time, and like the humor gave it the extra edge that made it my favorite franchise. So XRL7 says, were there significant differences between SG1 and the movie? It's been a while since I watching the latter. So the primary differences that you see between the movie and the show is primarily the alien representation. First of all, they don't show the Goa'uld as in the same lights, but they didn't have the same amount of time as running a 10-year-long series. The other was kind of the feeling of it, in my opinion.
It felt more epic in scope, which it needed. That's something I struggled with throughout the first season of SG1. Was I missed that epic ancient Egyptian sci-fi? Like it delivered that on a wonderful scale. The movie and the show, of course, it's only natural. It didn't have the greatest budget. We moved to Canada, and you don't have any of that ancient Egyptian. It felt more medieval in a sense. We got Ra was gone, and we got Apophis, but because they were shooting in Canada, it's more trees and mountains. They did tie it in okay to the story, and they had they tied some humor into it as well. So they sort of like tongue in cheek, which is great. But I did for that first season, I did miss the vibe of the movie a little bit. It felt
Yeah.
very grand in scope, larger than life. And the TV show for that first season, I'm going to say it did feel like a TV show. And I'm not saying that as a bad thing. I'm just saying there's certain sacrifices you're going to have to make when you make this kind of a concept into a TV
Yes.
show.
Yes, and the TV show got better as it went on. It's one of the rare things where like they don't necessarily hit you with all the greatest stuff in the first season or even the second season. As you build onto it and you start seeing character and storyline progressions and stuff like that.
And it didn't make the mistake of, it gave you just enough to stay
Yes.
invested, you know?
Yes, it didn't overdo it, and it's fantastic. Hail Vince! I'm glad you could make it, sir. So, and now we get to a Green Rocks comment. Did you ever see the animated show?
We were
talking about this,
gonna
so-
talk a little bit about Infinity because
Yeah.
most people just have not. They're not aware there's an animated Stargate show out there.
Yep. And okay, so I've never seen the animated series. It ran for one season or less than one
Barely,
season.
yeah.
Did you see any of that?
Dude, I did. I was big into those, like Jumanji, the 90s cartoons from franchises. You know, you had Jumanji. Most people don't even know there's an animated cartoon
Right.
show, Jumanji, the original movie from the 90s with Robin Williams. And it had that kind of style. And I remember the intro the most to Stargate Infinity. It was kind of that typical 90s intro. I didn't dislike it as much as everyone else did. I thought it was fun for what it's worth, but I felt like it went way off into, like, it didn't feel connected to what I loved about the franchise. And
That
what
happens a lot. I
I
mean,
don't miss it. What can I say?
I kind of had the reverse reaction between the G.I. Joe cartoons and when I started watching like movies of G.I. Joe. A very similar thing where it was kind of like, okay, that doesn't give me the feeling of the original one. They're okay. Like I might watch it again, but you know, so is it worth watching one time just to say you've
Yeah,
seen it?
if we didn't have universe, if we didn't have origin, if we didn't have all the bullshit going on in Hollywood right now, I would probably say, skip it, right? But because I found a new appreciation for what we kind of undervalued back then, and I'd say it's worth watching. Give it a watch. If you are so tired and exhausted of all the crap that we see now, yeah, take a chance and go and watch some of those poorly or underrated shows. It's worth your time, I would say. So at least one or two episodes, I'd say, if you can find it. I mean, dude,
Right.
it's really difficult to find episodes of the animated show. You might be able to find some, like an episode or two on YouTube. It does happen. You can find episodes of cartoons on YouTube.
Full series is available on Tubi to stream for free with ads.
There you go.
So I might actually wind up watching that. I mean,
it's worth it. It's worth it. At least give it a shot. I mean, even just go check out the intro alone. It's trippy. It's wonderful. It's got that great vibe to it. That wonderful 90s cartoon show vibe.
Nice.
So that's Infinity.
Now I feel like it's a fantastic time to go to my favorite Stargate, Atlantis.
All right, man.
And that show, from the beginning, the entire build up through SG1 to get to Atlantis was insane. Like those few
I'm
seasons,
glad you were touching upon that, dude. Because
so the build up to Atlantis in SG1 isn't like is like an entire season and then some of them trying to figure out this lost city stuff. And like, you know, they undergo this unfathomable journey to a completely different galaxy. And they wind up in a place that they know absolutely nothing about. And they're just like, this is where we live now. This is what we have to do. This is what we're going to do. And like just the setup from the beginning had me engaged. Shepard's character, with his, let's say, aversion for authority figures, His
Han
backstory.
Solo meets Luke Skywalker type,
Yeah, yeah.
perfect blend.
Like Shepard was a great lead character,
Yes,
and like his
solid gold.
personality was like Jack O'Neill because he had the humor and the seriousness
Well, that's
mixed
the
with.
thing. There was a danger of just repeating with what came
Yep.
before it because they are all memorable characters from SG-1.
Yep. And this guy here did such a fantastic job of
Jill
making his
Flanagan.
own character
Yeah.
in the series that he stands apart from everyone else. He actually stands out in my mind as a quintessential sci-fi character.
Yes.
Like I would like to see more John Shepard
Mm.
in
He wanted
anything.
to as well. We'll
Yeah,
get
right.
into that, but
Yeah.
another risk as well with McKay. We'll have to backtrack a little bit with McKay's character
Yep.
because they introduced him in SG-1.
Yep. And he was this
He's
total douchebag,
a real
unlikable
asshole,
character.
real
Like
obnoxious,
David
although
Hewlett, man.
fun. David Hewlett, like because I was familiar with David Hewlett from Cube, the movie Cube.
Mhm.
That's independent movie from Canada. And when I saw him in SG-1, even though he's completely obnoxious, they somehow still make him likable, if you know what I mean. It's a
Yep.
but
Likable
and
douchebags. It's
yes, and
weird.
yeah, it's paradox, right? And that takes a lot of effort in writing to get that just right. It's you got to be careful not to make them too obnoxious or too likable. The clash, you know. But I think what helped was the interaction with Samantha Carter. You know, because he
Yes.
had a huge crush, an obnoxious
Mhm.
crush on Samantha Carter.
That's a
I
good way to
just
put it.
and they're both brainiacs, if you know what I mean. They're both scientists. They're both competing to who's the smartest, or more so him than Sam. And when they announced him as being a mainstay character as part of the team for Atlantis,
Yeah.
I was like, "Ooh, is that gonna work?" And it's kind of like Woolsey, and we'll get into that.
Yeah.
And they just his development, I think, is going to be one of the best in the entire
Dude,
franchise.
he is the character in the entire franchise who had the most development.
Yes,
And it actually led to him being my favorite character
same.
in Atlantis and almost in all of SG and
He's
all of
definitely.
Stargate.
This is what I mean. It's difficult to choose, but
Mhm.
like it's gnawing at me. Like the David Hewlett's McKay, especially as we got deeper and deeper into Atlantis, you really feel connected to that character. Like it's yeah, definitely up there. Like
Yep.
out of the whole franchise, now that we can SG-1 Atlantis, definitely in Atlantis, and I know that's saying a lot because I love them all, but definitely my favorite in Atlantis. But as much as I like all of them, I think in the whole franchise, I think.
Yeah.
Mm.
See, McKay's character had so many levels to him.
Mm.
Like, he comes across as this narcissistic,
Which he
like,
is, dude.
yeah, he's a total narcissist, but he comes across as this total douchebag that you could never connect with, that you just kind of hope that he dies in SG-1 at some point. You're like,
You
can
do.
they kill this guy off? And then
Mm.
he just keeps coming back.
Mm.
But every time he comes back, there's more character development. They include his sister. They include, the fact that his name is Meredith.
Meredith.
Yeah, Meredith McKay, and like they play into that, and his citrus allergy
Yes,
was one of my favorite things that they played on.
Yep.
Throughout that entire series of Atlantis.
They spend time on him, and you find out why he is the way he is. And when he becomes more humbled, he's apologizing, and he starts to grow attached to the team, and he wants. He's doing things that he never thought he would do. He's like going out. He's running out there in combat. It's funny though because he can't handle a gun sometimes, and
Right.
he's got anxiety, and he's bordering on an anxiety / panic attack most of the time, especially with after the first season with Rainbow's character.
Ford.
Ford, yeah.
Yeah, Ford. I forgot his name was Rainbow.
Yeah, right. That's how I remember it because his real life name is Rainbow. It's like that's how I'm gonna remember you now.
Right. Man,
Yeah.
Ford's character progression was insane.
Mm.
And like I kept thinking even towards the end they were gonna bring his ass back.
I think they had plans on it, but this is where now we're gonna have to touch upon because Atlantis was peaking when they decided to cancel it, and they canceled it for the wrong reasons. And the way because they left it open ended with Ford, as they did with many storylines. Um, they felt because even John Shepard, he says, "I wouldn't be surprised if we run into him again. Don't count him out." But then, like in the last season, because they canceled the modern Battlestar Galactica, and I don't know why they did it, because then they needed something to fill that void, because they had nothing to fill that void. There was no shows out there that it had a huge fan base. You got a huge, and I respect it. Wasn't for me. Modern Battlestar Galactica, that is, wasn't for me, but it had a huge fan base. I respect it. And then they canceled it, and they wanted to turn Stargate into Battlestar Galactica, which is a very different vibe, very different show,
Yep.
completely different theme. Um, so they canceled Atlantis and to quickly introduce this new show called Stargate Universe.
Yes.
And everyone on Atlantis were like, "What? We're peaking. We've got all these views." Like everyone was loving it. It had a huge growing community, and it was a bad time. Like it was even Joe
Yep.
Flanagan, the guy who plays John Shepard, to quote him, he said, "We were the only show that were keeping the lights on."
Yep.
Was it at Sci-Fi or MGM? And they just sprung it on the entire cast. They didn't do it in a good way where they eased it on the cast. Some of the cast found out from the internet, for example. Like they weren't
Wow.
even told. Like midway through season 5, was it the last season, which was great. That the first
That
half
last
of that
season was great. Period.
well,
I
the last few episodes I was really
Yeah.
bummed because they rushed.
They rushed it.
Yeah, they rushed
They
it.
killed the
They
ending.
never knew how to
They
close
killed it
off. Yeah,
with the
they
ending. Yep.
the way they handled Weir's
Mm-hmm.
closure, dude, that left a sour taste in my mouth. That
Yeah,
was
they handled
depressing,
Weird
terrible.
really poorly at the end because
Well, they
she was
yeah,
one of my favorite female characters because she was a perfect
me too.
balance to the militaristic mindset of a lot of the people that were in charge, especially in SG-1. And because once we got past General Hammond, who was a great character, loved
Yeah.
General Hammond, and they brought in Beau Bridges' character,
Mm.
General, what's his face?
Oh, I can't. I'll
I don't
admit,
know why
dude,
I
I
can't remember his
wasn't
name.
as big into his character as I was General Hammond. So
Yeah, and
yeah.
but see, the Goa'uld were a menacing bad guy
Yes, they
in
were.
SG-1, but Jacob Ironside brings up the Wraith were a very menacing enemy. In my opinion, the Wraith were more visceral than the Goa'uld,
Yes.
and they were more engaging as an
Well,
enemy species.
in the Goa'ul's defense, the two are very different enemies.
Yes, very
They're
much so.
And as much as I love the Goa'uld as an enemy, the Wraith, there's something just that much more imposing and threatening about
Hmm.
them. They're more like with the Goa'uld, they wanted to enslave the populace and dominate and rule over them, whereas the Wraith, people were a food source to them.
Livestock, and that added a
Livestock.
whole new level of like kind of a horror feeling
Yeah,
to
and
having
they're
to
in
deal
an
with.
unknown galaxy, like
Hmm.
stranded, cut off from Earth, and they're dealing with this new horrifying threat, and it just kicked off from there. And like for SG-1, it took me a season to really sort of get into it because with that first season they messed around with one-off episodes, just going on
Hmm.
one-off adventures where I was like, can we get more into the old stuff? Like it's kind of on the sidelines here. And then once we got to the end of that first season, they did. Like it was a great,
Hmm.
like we had Apophis coming to Earth, and it left on a cliffhanger with maybe Daniel Jackson dying, and it was great. I was like,
Yep.
yes, finally we're getting into the Goa'uld stuff. Whereas with Atlantis, right from the get-go, like
Right from the start.
they were
And
there in the background, and you felt their presence. It was
yeah,
great.
and spoiler alert in case you haven't seen Atlantis, which you'd be crazy not to watch these shows, in my
Please go and
opinion.
watch Atlantis if you haven't. There's
But
no excuse.
like Shepard is the whole reason that the Wraith are as bad as they are in the series. Because he's all like, I don't know what's going on, but I'm gonna kill this bad guy and it's gonna go good. And it's a Wraith Queen. And the hive mentality of the Wraith, and she dies, they were the keepers, it wakes all the other ones up, it creates a feeding frenzy, like that entire chain of events
Yep.
set the pace, and they didn't lose the pace either. They had a few episodes in there where you were like, okay, this is
I
but
will give Atlantis credit. It's the one show where I feel like I can. There's very few episodes where I feel like I
yes,
can skip.
yep,
Like there's even some of the shows I really love, like SG1. There's episodes where okay, I'm gonna skip this one. Like I feel like it's not that necessary to the story, and it's maybe it's a bit of a one-off. But with Atlantis, it just keeps you going throughout. And especially once we got to season 5, it still had that. I was not getting tired of it. I felt like 2, 3 more seasons at least. I felt like
yep.
it needed that for some of
It
these
did.
storylines they had going.
It did.
It
It left a lot of unclosed loops
and
there.
then in those last few episodes, like Michael thing, as much as it was epic, the way
Mhm.
I just felt like they were rushing. And I will get, as much as I love the creative team behind both shows, I felt like they never knew how to finish the shows. Like
Right.
the ending to SG1, I'm gonna say, dude, I was disappointed. They just killed off Thor's race, the Asgard, just like
Yep.
that. Like,
Boom,
dude,
done.
come on. Yeah, done. Like, we don't need
Here's
to.
all our tech. Bye.
And
Yep.
then I liked the Arc of Truth because they did a couple of TV movies. I really like the Arc of Truth because that was the replicator
Yeah.
stuff, and that was one of the episodes that stand out most to me in SG1. I know we're going a bit of back and forth, but
Yeah.
deal with it, guys. Do you remember the episode where it kicked off? That was it, season 3 or 4, with the replicators. Thor's ship is in orbit above Earth,
Yep.
and that's when we get and I remember dun 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 dun,
Mhm.
that theme, and you see O'Neill and Teal picked up the Spash shotguns and just go to town
Dude.
on
Yep.
Thor's ship, and I'm like, this is great. This is, we got, they didn't sacrifice the global storyline, but they introduced a new villain as well,
Yep.
and again, menacing villain.
The
Not
replicators were badass.
Dude, when they were in that bug form, and then
Mhm.
when we got introduced to the human form replicators, which play a big part in Atlantis, because they're tied to the ancients, and the ancients kind of being the architect of their own downfall, which I
Yeah.
love. I love those philosophical elements as well, which they are there. They are present in more so in Atlantis than SG1, I feel,
Yep.
and wonderful stuff. But they were menacing enough in SG1, but in Atlantis, when we see there's almost an entire civilization of
Yeah.
human form replicators out there, it was
Yep.
bad enough with the Wraith,
Yep.
and then we got those human form replicators. Do you remember Oberoth, the leader?
Yes. Oberoth was such an intense character.
I
Like
mean,
as
when
far
you
as
look at him,
his
you wouldn't think he's this
no.
intimidating character, but the way, dude, he's horrifying as a
Yeah,
character.
and that actor's presence like
Mm,
gave everything to Oberoth.
big.
And that was like, yes.
It didn't
So
feel cheesy. It didn't feel cringy. Like just full on menacing.
so No Green Rocks brings up the Shepherd Wraith friend arc was great.
We'll call you
So
Todd. Let's go with Todd.
Todd,
Bird.
yes, hello Shepherd, and like so Todd was one of the best like frenemy characters you could ever see
And pop
because him and
quiz. Did you know that the guy who plays Todd actually played one of the members of Taylor's
yep.
people?
Yeah, he was like one of the primary leaders of her people after
Mm,
her
that
planet got
clashed a
shut
little
down.
bit
Yeah.
with the team at Atlantis.
He also appeared in the SG1 episode
He did.
where he was in the town and that everyone was
Yeah.
forgetting their like
Mhm.
they could reprogram their brains on the fly kind of thing.
Right. That's true. Yeah, I
And
remember
like
that.
he was a very regular actor in the show and he never did a bad job.
I'm happy they brought him back as a
Mhm.
kind of a mainstay character because he has a presence about him and he's a good actor. I mean, and versatile as well. The fact that he went from that kind of like 3 different characters, he went from that and then to more of a noble kind of spiritual tribesman, if you will, to this intimidating but a unique wraith that actually has intellect, but still intimidating. They didn't completely pussify
Yeah.
as a wraith, yeah, but you're constantly wondering, what's his agenda? Do you remember when they converted like that mission where Taylor had to become a Wraith Queen? one of my favorites, dude.
Dude. Okay, so the twists in Atlantis
Mhm,
were practically never ending.
mhm,
With T.A.L being like a semi half breed where she
mhm.
has Wraith DNA in her system. She's got the early
Yep,
detection system. She's got
mhm.
the psychic abilities to tap into the
Great stuff.
Wraith Queens and stuff like that. Hello, Keely Chow. I'm glad you could make it.
Hello there.
What's going on? So we're just talking about Stargate, Keely. We're having a great time. I hope you're a fan of the series. If you're not, go watch it because it's so good.
Right now, drop everything you're doing. Drop out of this live stream. No, don't drop out
No,
of this.
don't drop out of this live stream and go watch it. Put it on in the background.
Right after, plus you can, by the way, because I'm glad that it's actually been picked up now, because they, not that long ago, a few months ago, it was being removed from all the streaming services.
Yep.
The only way you would have been able to get it would be through physical media. But if you get a chance to go watch, it would be great to start with SG1. But try out Atlantis, seriously. I don't think you'll regret it, especially now, dude. Hopefully,
Indeed.
you'll agree with what we've got out there now, with all the
Yep.
bastardization of Star Trek and Star Wars, and they're, yeah. Do it,
So,
please.
no green rocks. I'm glad you could make it, sir. Have fun at work. And,
Take care.
yep, Gator's going to gate, baby. So,
Yes, it is Superman. If he wasn't scared of green rocks, it is on Hulu right now, and it
yes.
is. I would say it's worth a subscription for that, even if you don't stick with it, just so you can watch the Stargate shows.
So, this leads to a very important question. How do you feel about them rebooting it?
I wish this was as simple as just talking about a lame reboot, but I can't. When you said that, I couldn't help but think of the Google AI thing they're doing right
Yep.
now. But
Script
that is
writers are
separate.
all
Yeah.
AI.
That isn't actually the reboot. But real quickly, I'm after Universe and after Origins and after they canceled the video game. If we can talk a little bit, just
Oh,
to
dude.
touch
Yeah,
upon that,
absolutely.
that was 90% completed. Um,
It
it was
looked
going to
good from the screenshots that I saw.
Dude, if it wasn't for copyright issues, I would have you play the trailer for that game. It was going to be a first-person shooter with co-op ability because it was the team of SG1 going up against. They actually, since they had a budget and it's a video game, they had more of that Egyptian vibe as well with going to like desert planets. You had more the system wars. It was at the peak of SG1 when you had Anubis, the super soldiers, and you were going through the Stargate on missions. You started off at Stargate Command, and what a great concept that is in video game format. And it was called Stargate
Alliance.
Alliance.
Stargate the Alliance. Yep.
Yes, and they were
And
going to introduce a new villain, a new unique villain that looked really creepy, and I was looking forward to that. They had the cast back to do the voices. This thing was so near completion then because of a stupid, I don't know, like almost political reason they canceled it, like due to right holders between the movie franchise and the shows. I think I could be wrong. I could be misremembering because they also were working on a Stargate MMO. And
really?
yes, and they canceled that too, and that was also super near completion. But they repurposed the assets for that game, and they made it into a more like Counter-Strike clone, and
Oh.
it didn't do well. It
See,
just
so
after go ahead.
I'm looking at the pictures from this video game,
Mm,
Stargate Alliance.
mm-hmm.
And this was supposed to have been coming out somewhere between 2006 and
Oh yeah.
2008, right? Depending on the finishing touches. And like the graphics in this game look good for being
For the
developed in
time, they look
2005.
great.
I love the concept
Mhm.
and like it looks good. And I can't believe they didn't push this through to the finish
Mm.
because for me, this is like reverse Anthem, if you will, where I didn't even know
They
this
should have canceled
existed,
that
but I'm
one.
already super hyped about this.
Yeah.
Like, this got canceled and I'm hyped about it, when I was disappointed in a
Yeah.
lot of the video games we get these days, and
Close to 90% completion, and the assets are still out there. It wouldn't take much. I know it's way past its day. It looks a little bit dated. I would
I would
still
play
want
the
it though,
shit
dude.
out of it. Yeah, I would play that
I would
game.
if they sold it for like $20 or something, and they just put the finishing touches. Dude, what Stargate game? I think we got a couple of mobile games, and that's it.
Yep.
I mean, it's such a prime franchise to have such great video games, and they botched it every time.
It is. And like, I see like fan made merchandise for these shows all the time. Like, they have these
Oh, yeah.
mirrors that are the Stargate, and they come with actual DHDs where you can dial the different mirrors with their own unique code and talk to people through them and stuff.
Yep.
And
If you got it
while
connected
that
to the internet, yep.
yeah, while that seems kind of creepy in certain contexts, it's still like a really fun idea, because you're using a
Yes.
Stargate to connect to another Stargate.
Mhm.
And it's got the animations, it looks like the portal's running, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, they got that sort of mirrored effect in the portal,
Yep.
and it looks like it goes into a black. It's a really cool effect. They still
Yeah.
got the wormhole effect, or the event horizon effect. Sorry, overlaid on that, so it's still got that blue hue to it. So it
Mhm.
doesn't look like something completely different. But you get this mini DHD. You put in the symbols, and it will go through with the sounds and everything. And I
Yep.
know I was really hoping they'd make a production line of that, because I feel like that would sell like hotcakes.
Dude,
But
it
it's
would be
a
so
fan
good.
thing.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And
it's unofficial.
it's just once again showing that the fans do it better.
Yep.
Now, do I think that Joseph Malozzi will handle this new Stargate correctly?
I hope so.
Yes. Do I think the studio will? No.
I think they're gonna butt heads if they haven't already. I know
Yeah.
they butted heads already, because this thing has been going on, dude. That first it was gonna be because I have to go into a little bit of history here, and I'll try and be quick about it. One universe hit, I was very active on the Gate World community, and there were a lot of us that were disappointed with the direction. There was there was sex scenes in almost every episode. It was sleazy. It was clearly that Battlestar Galactica vibe. And there were people speaking out about it, and the show's creators, because it didn't even make it through the second season. I think they had to,
Nope. Yep.
yeah, it canceled it right there and then, because it
Those
was,
guys have been lost in space for like over a decade now. I'm just
mm,
going to say.
yeah, and they blamed the community. Like, they got really sort of,
Fan blaming. Never heard of that
yeah,
before.
they felt they attacked the community,
Mhm.
unfortunately, because we had nothing but love for these guys, and we were just asking, don't turn the franchise into another franchise. Please go make a new go do more Battlestar Galactica if you feel like that void needs filling. Please. And I got banned from Gate World for speaking out, only for speaking out as
Yep.
humbly as I could. None of because they got a lot of good credit from the start, like MGN and stuff like that. They were shipped, like they went to a lot of events, and yeah, so they didn't want any of that. They got rid of people that were criticizing the new show, but it spoke for itself, because after barely 1.5 seasons, they canceled it,
Yep.
and then the franchise rights went up in the air. So they were going to do more sequels to the original movie. Then that Roland Emmerich was going to get the rights back or whatever. That didn't work out. Then we got Stargate Origins. Remember that?
Yes, that was the I can't even remember her name.
Yeah.
She's like the person who discovered the gate, kind of like her
It
dad
made
found
no
it.
sense in the context of the storyline, but it was supposed to be a hodgepodge of the original movie
Yeah.
and
And
SG-1, and it didn't gel quite. It
and
just
it's, if you guys haven't seen Origins, it's like a 9 or 10 part mini movie. Catherine, thank you, Vince.
Catherine.
Catherine,
Thank
but
you.
it's out there. They made it 9 to 10 episodes. They're 10 minutes long each. If you want to go check it out, you can. But I'm gonna spoil the shit out of it. Basically, it's set when Catherine is in her like 20s or whatever. The gate gets activated for the first time. Some stupid alien shit goes down, and it ends with her getting her memory wiped. It's
Oh,
garbage. The storyline had potential, but they ruined it and they put it in a context that didn't make sense with the already established lore. Something we've never heard of before, right?
mm.
So I'm going to touch on the universe show real quick, okay? Because we haven't actually talked about that.
Let's hear your opinions on it, dude. I know we've talked a little bit
The
about it.
episode of SG1 called 200 poked fun at them making it younger, more
Yes.
sexy, more edgy. And then they went and fucking did it. Okay. I think that's the first time I've said fuck on this live stream. So I'm just going to keep saying it now. Fuck Stargate Universe. And the reason I say fuck Stargate Universe is because they had a huge name cast. They had Lou Diamond Phillips. They had all kinds of awesome people that would just pop in and do like
They had
good
one of my
episodes.
favorite actors in there, dude. The
Yeah.
Scottish guy. I can never remember his name, but he was a great underrated Bond villain. So yeah, they had the cast, they had the production value.
Yeah, they had production value, they had everything, but where did it fall short? Writing and directing.
Big
Because
time.
they wanted to do what they joked about in the episode 200. And it pissed.
They ruined the device as well, the Stargate. I did not
They
like
did.
the look of it.
They did. I mean, they had a cedar ship for
Mm.
Stargates. And what did they do? They flew it off out in the middle of fucking nowhere.
It's
And
lost
they're
in
like,
space
we're
and
going
it's
to
about
find
Star
proof
Black.
of, like, and they were like chasing proof of God or something like that. Or, you know, there's a signal from the origin of the universe. It's like, how the fuck would you know that, first of all? Second of all, it's the universe. Where that originated from isn't in the same spot that it was before. Stop following it. And
it was also lore contradicting, dude, with its own lore.
It was. And like the way they started it was garbage.
Mm.
Like I didn't understand the
Guy
opening
plays
for
a
that at
video
all.
game, gets recruited.
Yeah, he gets recruited, and then but like they're all like Sam's in some kind of like bunker getting bombed and shit while they're trying to get some people off of these things, and they get them into the
Robert Carlyle, thank you, Jacob.
Robert Carlyle. But they fucked that show up. My wife and I watched it one time, and we were mad enough that like I almost got rid of the DVDs.
I
But me
didn't
being a
even bother with the
completionist,
second season, dude.
me being a completionist, I own them all. I'm gonna have to buy the animated ones on physical. I'll find a bootleg copy of the 90% of that video game that's out there somehow. I'll see. You know, Hong Kong.
The assets are out there, dude.
Probably get me something, but it's.
But to
Stargate
answer your
Universe
question,
was the bastardization of Stargate.
that's where everything just, and it didn't gradually decline. It just went off of a cliff.
Like Netflix stocks, okay?
Yeah.
Just
Joe Flanagan and some of the cast and crew of Atlantis were trying to get the rights so they could bring Atlantis back. They told the whole cast, "Oh, we're gonna do a movie like we did with SG1. You're fine," and they just left them hanging there. They had to find out themselves by contacting people, and it sucked. We all wanted out. We were all hyped for more Atlantis. We would have look. It's like a case of, as much as I hate this phrase, take our money. You know, we were invested. You had built up such great characters, such a great lore, and you just flushed it down the toilet, basically.
And you know, they didn't have any engagement on having original characters, or the characters from the original shows pop in every once in a while. They didn't do that at all. And if they did, I don't remember it. So it wasn't.
There was one episode where they brought in McKay, and it was just so.
And like they put so like I'm about to get a little political, but this is because of how I am towards this.
Sometimes you can't avoid it, dude.
So. It was too much sex for a sci-fi show, but
that trend was really kicking off. That's when it was kicking off, man. I mean,
but they introduced
sleaziness.
One of the concepts that they introduced that I hated was when they were using the ancient communication devices that allow you to possess another person's body. And then these people were possessing other people's bodies and then having sexual relationships with their loved ones as this person supposedly possessed by them. And I'm like, okay, I liked Stargate, the original one, with the complete lack of sex.
Yeah,
anywhere in that show.
That was love.
The first unedited episode of SG1 has nudity in it.
Oh yes, but that was done, I feel, tasteful. That was done in the right context,
and it never happened again.
It wasn't sleazy. No, it didn't.
The thing is like, yes, there was obviously sexual tension between O'Neill and Carter.
Oh, sure.
But they did it correctly in the fact that they had to respect their jobs, if you will, and they had to respect their chain of command. You cannot sacrifice operational security for these kinds of things. And Stargate Universe was nothing but sacrificing and compromising operational security for the sake of these people's personal relationships. And not even some of my favorite actors could have saved this show. Ever.
No, one of my favorite. It had one of my favorite, Robert Carlyle, and it didn't
Yep.
save it, dude.
Well, and see, they have the ending of Stargate Universe where they're just all like, "Oh, we're gonna go to sleep and then we're gonna wake up," and I'm all like, "Okay." I wrote my own ending following watching that, going, "It exploded," and that
I'll take your ending, bro. I'll take your ending. Thank you very much.
I would have been like, "Oh, they all went to cryo sleep. Critical systems failure."
I would have been happy. As much of a cliche, and they actually teach you in film school, never do this. Is if it like, I don't know, someone woke up and it was all a bad dream.
Right.
We just got back to how, you know.
Yeah, one of the cheap like write-offs endings. Like I would have accepted that over the entire series, honestly. Like,
yes,
Earth blew up, boom, series is over. No more Earth, no more Stargate, you know, but
well, that answers your original question, dude. What do I think of a reboot? And ever since, I'm not going to say I'm as bad in it as when it comes to Star Trek and Star Wars, because I'm a big Star Wars guy. Like original trilogy. I'm so done. Like I just want it to go away and die, and like maybe it can come back a decade or two, like from a better writer, and fix the problems. I mean, the entirety of Hollywood needs to change, dude. Same with Star Trek. I'm like with those shows, I'm so done. I feel like maybe there's an inkling I could give Stargate a bit more of a try if they do it right. But I have no hope because of all of that, what's gone in Hollywood. There's no franchises out there that I'm really liking from Hollywood right now. I feel like I really have to dig deep to find it.
This is where
that's just me.
I guess you could call me a slight sellout. If they offered me a role on the new Stargate show, I would jump on that shit like fat kid on a cupcake. Like a fat kid with low blood sugar on a cupcake, being like, "Oh, it's so good." I would take it. I'd be like, "Yo, can I be a red shirt in every episode?"
I understand the
like, yo, let's do this. Like, I'll be that random guy. I'll be Siler.
Would you have done that if they came to you when Universe was going on, though? Would you? No.
No. Back if they would have pitched me the idea of Universe back when I was still enjoying Atlantis and stuff the first time and all this other stuff.
If you hadn't seen anything of Universe, I probably would have, dude.
Yeah, well, they would have had to pitch it to me for me to be on board with Universe. And the moment I saw that it was edgier, younger, and sexier, and all this other stuff that they tried to do, I would have told them to eat a bag of dicks.
Same.
But that's what that's what Lou Diamond Phillips should have told them to do. He's a nice guy. I love that man. He's great to talk to. He's fun to interact with. But like, he should have turned that role down. Like, I love him as an actor, but not even he did well in that show. And it wasn't his fault. Honestly, it was all writing and directing. But when it comes down to it, that show ruined a lot of stuff for me. And like, not so much my love for the franchise as much as it did like my respect for the showrunners themselves. See, boom, a red shirt that gets cloned in every episode just to die the best way possible. Beast of the week. Yeah, I would do that. I'd be like, yo, I'll be the clone brigade and be like, hey, you guys need some fodder?
I'll meet you in the middle, dude. And after Universe, if I got like some sort of offer come my way, I would ask for a script. I would ask for a script. Like, in this context that the show doesn't exist yet, that might change. Like, it might be good. I do not like to prejudge. I like to see something from it first.
Yes, indeed.
I'm not going to let my cynicism get in the way.
Right.
But just going off of the way the franchise is now, how they left it, and the state of Hollywood, I wouldn't. Doesn't look good, bro. I would ask for something. before I made
Yeah,
that commitment. Oh, sure. What about a paycheck? You know me, I'm not in a great financial position to just take it, just take it. No, because I do not want to be involved in ruining a franchise I love.
that's
That's
actually
worth more
one of
than a financial.
that's the primary reason that I, as an actor, have backed
Mm,
off auditioning for mainstream roles
mm,
because I don't know whether or not they're just going to ruin whatever they're making.
mm,
Because I've had a lot of opportunities come across my desk that I could have jumped on, I could have nailed it, and I could be working for Disney right now. I could be working for Warner Brothers. I could be, palling around with Patty Jenkins. I could all these different kinds of people that I've interacted with and had conversations with over the year. It's now now I'm like, okay, who's the main studio? If
mm,
it's Disney or if it's anything related to Warner, I'm automatically passing. I
mm,
do not hold that same thought process with any Amazon projects because right now they currently own all the rights to my favorite franchises.
mhm.
And that doesn't apply to certain film studios that a lot of people have issues with. Like if Bad Robot Abrams could come to me with a well written script, good characters, and a good plan for it, I would be down for an Abrams
Sure.
project.
You would real I feel like with him,
But
I'm at the same mindset, but he would really have to sell me on
yes,
it and
he would
prove.
have to.
I
They
feel
would
like
have
he's
to
got a
try
lot more to
very
earn.
hard to make me interested in that.
Yep.
And I'm sitting over here as saying this stuff as a nobody. Let's just put that out there. I recognize the fact that I have not done anything to earn my acting chops. I have not done anything to cut my teeth in the mainstream world, but that's my choice.
Mm,
And I have connections all over the place in the mainstream world, but I feel like too much talent chases the jobs. The job should be chasing talent,
yes.
in my opinion.
Mm,
Like if I come up with a project, if you come up with a project, we're not just going to be like holding open auditions for the lead role. We're going
mm,
to try to fill it with who we think is best.
bingo.
And I feel like they should do that with more unknown people these days.
Oh yeah, that's one of the reasons I love how they did Star Wars, the way they took risks back in the day.
Hmm.
They had one really well-known name, Alec
Hmm.
Guinness, and they took a whole bunch of unknowns, people you've almost never heard of, and look what happened.
Yep.
You don't see that anymore. You just don't.
Nope. And
And
it's
there's so many hungry people out there that are just waiting for their chance to be able to. This is what we need right now in Hollywood. We need to wipe the slate clean and bring in all the people that can truly create new, wonderful franchises again, new storytelling, fresh minds. Yeah, because Hollywood right now is not proving that it is deserving of its role of you got
right.
all these sellouts and just people that should not be anywhere near a camera,
I
anywhere
agree.
near the director's seat, anywhere. Yeah.
Near a typewriter or a computer or
Right.
like
Right.
or a pencil for that matter. Because I've seen some of the art that comes out these days, and I'm all like,
Oh
that's
yeah.
terrible.
That's the
So
whole
Stephen Ransom
conversation of
says,
its
"Thank
own.
you, Shaun, for being such a nerd."
I'm happy to be a nerd. I will never apologize for being a nerd, and I am happy to talk about nerd shit all day.
Hell
But
yeah!
yeah, I'm just letting you know, dude, we are over the hour point,
Oh, I
so
know,
I'm
I
happy
know.
to
I'm
wrap as
making
long
this
as
the
you want,
longest
dude.
live stream we've done so far, so I've got another
Sounds
2 minutes before we're gonna punch out. But that's just enough time for you to pitch your channels and stuff. Anything you'd like to do?
thanks. Yeah. My main channel is Omegastar Productions, and that is my company's name. It's a registered company. I made a short movie, even though in a lot of places, it's too long to be a short movie. It's 38 minutes long. It's called Poker Night, a dark comedy. I shot it in a foreign country, so you have to put up with some weird accents. I kept the dialogue in English because I wanted to reach an English speaking market. Won a few awards at film festivals. So I would really appreciate it if you could take the time to check that out. If you want to, yeah, just check out a short movie, purely fictional, and might be good fun. You're free to hate it. Please, I'm always open to constructive criticism. But I also have, when it comes to nerd stuff, when it comes to the quote-unquote fandom menace community, I have something called He Who Laughs, where I wanted to review movies, things like that, even get a little or poke fun at politics. And that's a certain character from a certain franchise. You might get a kick out of that. You might find it cringe. I used to have a YouTube channel with it. I don't, but it's still on BitChute and Odyssey. He Who Laughs. There's an almost hour-long review of The Force Awakens, and it's done. Yeah, let's just say if you've ever heard
Mr.
of the
J.
Joker from The Dark Knight, yeah, you might get a kick out of it. So
This guy
check that
here does a killer Joker impression. If you're
out.
gonna check it out, even just for his Joker impression, do it. It's worth it every
Would
second.
really appreciate it. I could use some support, but I also have Escaping the Matrix, which is a purely philosophical. I hate to use the word political, but it is what it is. I hate politics, by the way, but there are certain things that are going on in the world right now that I just have to speak my mind on, share my voice. Maybe it'll help some people. Maybe some people will get something out of it. Which Joker? The Dark Knight Joker.
Yes, Heath Ledger.
Love him or hate him. Me personally, he's my favorite. Like, I've gotten my favorite Joker now. That was the Joker for me.
Yeah,
I know I've clashed with a lot of people that can't stand it, but to each his own, you know.
indeed.
And that philosophical / political channel is called Escaping the Matrix. You'll find it on BitChute, Odyssey, everything but YouTube, basically. Other than that, yeah, that's me. And thanks for watching Corey's show. Like and subscribe to this guy, by the way, because yeah, he needs the support. He's got a lot of great talent. He's got a lot of projects in the work. And keep an eye out in the future. Show some support.
Hell yeah. Thank you, sir. And as always,
Been a great
chat
show.
and all of you watching on the back end and the replay, thank you. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share, even though current statistics say that when you say that, people don't. So don't like, subscribe, and share. Reverse psychology for you. Can't believe I have to keep approving Steven's comments. But anyway, we'll catch you next time, guys. Next week, I've got Mike from XRL7 joining me on the show.
Looking forward to that.
Yes, we're going to have a great time. Of course, catch me tonight yelling at parked cars. We're joined by Carrie Smith from Unsafe Space. And that should be a fantastic time. Tomorrow will just be a Dick's Division Prepper Warehouse commercial. It's going to be hilarious. It's only going to be 30 seconds long. Make sure you check that out. Wednesday is at 7:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, Mountain Daylight Time, whatever. I am starting up Dark Philosophy. Supposed to be co-hosted by Germ404. Hopefully everything works out there. Our first guest will be Mr. Grant Gregory. We will have our topics to talk about, and we will have a good time. But as always, ladies and gentlemen, stay sexy and don't get murdered.
Peace.
Hi! If you enjoyed this content and would like to see more of it and more like it, then donate to the Ko-Fi link in the description.